We air your real estate voice every Saturday. If you can't listen to the entire show, it is available on Barb's site, barbhasthebuyers.com, or just search for Barb. You'll find her on most popular podcast platforms like iHeartRadio. Every week, your real estate voice covers great information about the housing market and one of people's largest assets, their home. So, Barb, what are we covering today?
Well, Richard, I'm excited about this one. We have talked about it before, but it's more updated. The first one is about, is Zillow really right about home values and about where the market was going, or are they fake news? And I think you'll be surprised at the answer. Every time I ask the seller what they think their home is worth, most of the time they're referring to what Zillow says, but I think you'll be surprised when you find out how Zillow gets their data. It's not always accurate. And then the next topic is about our multiple cash offer program and how smart sellers can set up themselves to win and get multiple cash offers, regardless of whether or not they're doing a cash offer or a traditional buyer offer. And even in a slower market, that's the best position to be in, to get multiple offers and be able to choose your best buyer. The third topic is about a little bit more detail on the cash offer platforms, some of the different offers that they make, why even do that. There are some expenses to it. Most of them will pay full market value, but they charge more fees than I would. So we'll talk about why would somebody do that and what the benefits of some of those programs are. And the very last topic, which I enjoy talking about, is how to choose your next real estate agent and why it could cost you thousands if you choose the wrong agent. And as always, I love talking about my hot new listings. Richard?
So, Barb, with the real estate market shifting, many people look to Zillow to get an idea of what their home is worth. I know last year we discussed Zillow predictions of a moderate increase. So, how accurate so far this year are the Zillow opinions of the market and home prices?
Well, Zillow did predict moderate increases, maybe 1 to 3% were their numbers, but we're not quite seeing that right now. For home buyers, it's all about affordability, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's always about having the home ready for sale. Like we have one that we put on the market where there's lower priced homes around it, but this home is beautiful and on a great lot. And as soon as it hit the market, my phone's blowing up with requests to showing, and it's not a low price point. So there is this pent up demand out there of people looking to move. And they're always shopping online to find out what is the best home for them. So it's really critical that you take a very forensic look at not just what has sold. You need similar sales to substantiate to the lender that what you're paying as a buyer is market value, right? You don't want to have, after 3 weeks into the process, the lender to come back, oh no, it's not worth what your contract price is. The appraiser thinks it's only worth X, therefore we're only going to loan this amount. So guess what, buyer? You got to bring the difference in cash or try to renegotiate the sale, which nobody wants to do that a week before closing. So here's what's actually going on with home values right now. Typically this time of year is prime time. When homes go on the market, they fly off the shelf because there are fewer homes to compete with and more buyers seriously looking that want to make an offer and actually make that move and get moved by the beginning of the summer. But the truth is, the demand is a little bit less, probably by about 3% as compared to last year. And the inventory is up by about 10%. So when you have more homes to compete with and less buyers, you're going to have more days on market. You're going to have some pricing adjustments coming. And the buyers are more selective than ever. They are looking at those tech company sites like Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. They're looking at those sites' opinions of value because they publish everything. They're looking at the listing history. They're looking at all the homes around you and what they're selling for to make a really good decision first as to whether or not they're even going to come look at the house. Because if it's overpriced, they're not showing up. And then the second decision is whether or not after they see it, they want to make an offer, and where will their offer sit. Now, a lot of people just naturally throw in a lowball offer. So I always tell sellers, if you get an offer like that, and that's the only one on the table, work with them. I'm not saying you have to give them a discount, but I think it's offensive to ignore them completely. You never know what somebody's willing to pay, and they might just be fishing to see if they can get a little better deal. Actually, if you look back at what the market's done since 2022, when the Fed raised the rates, the prices have dropped a good 10%. Yet there's still homes that are selling for over asking price. And that's all about pricing the home correctly. And it's not according to what Zillow says. And here's something that I think home sellers really need to hear is that you can't look at Zillow and say that your home is worth X. Sometimes my experience has been most home sellers are really educated on everything that's available around them. They're checking it out. They want to make sure their home is positioned in the same manner as other homes available for sale. But the homes that are priced right, the homes that are prepared right, and the homes that are marketed right, even in this market where you have higher inventory, lower volume of buyers, will sometimes get multiple offers. And homes that are overpriced, they sit on the market, and over time, they slowly walk the price down. And whenever they do that, according to the National Association of Realtors, they will end up netting less money. It's always best to come out of the gate priced what I call realistically versus optimistically. Now, this is why Zillow gets their Zestimates wrong. And it's not just Zillow. Zillow has them. Realtor.com has a couple different ones. You might get it from your credit card. They'll say, oh, your home is worth this much, or your insurance company, right? They're just gathering all this public data, which is essentially what it is. I don't know where they come up with the numbers, but they use a fancy term called algorithms, is some sort of calculation. But what I found out from AI is Zillow just looks at what's available. They don't look at what's sold, but what has sold is where the rubber meets the road. It doesn't matter what you're asking. You could ask $5 million for a 1 million house, but that doesn't mean that drives the values up of the homes around you. If it's not selling, they can tell. And if you look at the history, when Zillow first started this, even the CEO of Zillow, his Zestimate of his home value was 1.5 million, and it sold for 1 million. Oops, that's a pretty big difference, 500,000 off. So you never know exactly, but you can always tell the moment you go on the market when all of a sudden you're getting people requesting to showings, you're getting demand, you're getting lots of views on Zillow. I look at the ratio between views and saves to get to kind of gauge if there is demand for the home or not. And here's the other part about Zillow. What they don't know is that they don't really know the upgrades that you put in your home. They don't know if you have granite. They may see the stainless steel appliances. Here's one thing they don't really measure, which they should, but views. Everybody thinks views have value, and actually you can measure it. If you look at a home, similar size home that sold next to one that had views and one across the street that didn't, the one with views is going to sell for more all day. And it actually depends on where you are. There's certain parts of town where that view could be worth 100 or 200,000, but the average nice Pikes Peak view in the area is probably worth about $35,000 to $50,000, but you still can't price that way, right? Because it doesn't really work. You can't just add up what your values are and say, well, therefore my home must sell for this. You'll be able to tell immediately when you go on the market if you get that wrong. The actual price and what buyers come up with as far as what the home is worth, they look at your asking price, of course, and they basically vote with their feet. If they don't like the price, I don't care how pretty the house is, they're not coming. They're not going to come and see the house. So that's your first line of defense, is make sure you're priced right. And I've even had homes that were not very pretty, that because they were priced right, had a lot of demand and multiple offers and sold for more than asking price. And what your home is actually worth is not what Zillow says. It's not what your neighbor hopes it is. And it's certainly not what it was worth back in 2022 when the rates were 2.5%, 3%, and everybody was having to engage in bidding wars to get homes at the time. If you are thinking about selling, this is what you should know. Bidding wars are not as common. Don't expect it. Buyers are definitely pickier than they've ever been. The average days on market has been going up more than normal for this market. I think the last number I saw in El Paso County anyway, and it's pretty consistent all around the Front Range, is about anywhere from 98 to 104 days. So, but a lot of sellers don't want to wait for the averages. It is a big pain point to deal with showings because you have to get the house ready for sale, make it show ready, put everything away. Most people don't live like that all the time. And then they have strangers come through their house, and then they have stuff happen when they come through their house. You know, they have sometimes the occasional carelessness that takes place during showings, like they use the restrooms, or they leave doors unlocked or lights on, or they track in dirt or snow or mud or something like that. Very, very frustrating for home sellers. Usually they want that pain point to end as soon as they can. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about how right was Zillow about home values. And next up, we're going to talk about some Zillow predictions and basically how you should prepare planning ahead going through the rest of the year. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker. This is your real estate voice, and we're talking about Zillow and the housing market, how accurate their predictions are, and whether you can rely on them. Barb, tell us a little bit more.
Well, at the end of the day, no, that wouldn't be my first choice. I always ask the sellers what they think the value is before we meet because I want to know what they think it is. And most of the time they'll tell me, oh, well, you know, Zillow says this, right? But I like to come with empirical data. The way an appraiser makes a decision about how they assess value is they compare apples to apples. So a two-story next to a two-story, a ranch next to a ranch, right? Similar size, similar square footage, plus or minus 20%. They can adjust bedrooms, baths, garage spaces, stuff like that. But they're looking for something very similar in a short distance, if they can find it, that has sold within the last year. It doesn't matter what happened 2 years ago. It has to be within the last year and preferably the last 3 to 6 months. So that's for appraiser purposes. But for pricing decisions, I also look at what is the current competition and how do you position the home to be the best on the block. And we know how to do that. We help sellers do it all the time. So if you are thinking of making a move and you'd like to know what your home value is and not what Zillow says, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, the number to reach Barb, 719-301-3900, or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing how smart sellers create multiple offers even in a slower market, and they get to choose the best buyer. Back for that.